and welcome to Chanel Adventures. So today, yes, it's been a while since my last upload. I thought I would talk about something that a lot of people toss up, and this is doing a working holiday in the country of Japan. And I feel like I'm allowed to express my opinion on this, largely because I did a working holiday in Japan last year. So I thought I'd go over some of the things to think about and maybe help you decide whether or not this is the right decision for you. So I'll talk about some things like accommodation, work, transport, things to do for fun, and just what you can get out of it, okay? So, first I'd like to talk about accommodation. So, if you've seen one of my other videos on this channel, I showed some of my experiences living in a share house, and I think this is definitely one of the plus sides to Japan, is just living there and experiencing living in a kind of smaller place, if you will, compared to a lot of other countries. Often you don't have big ovens, you know, you have microwaves and like little gas cookers, but typically most little places don't have big ovens, at least like we're used to in New Zealand. So it's a real challenge. You have to think about cooking different food, and of course that goes with it, right? Totally different supermarkets and different vegetables. On the bright side, I found personally that a lot of the food was cheaper in Japan compared to what I'm used to in New Zealand. Mind you, this is from someone who lived in Tokyo City, coming from Christchurch City in New Zealand. So both cities are known to be quite expensive, so maybe that's not really a helpful tip. But anyway, in Japan, you know, you can not only live in a share house, but you can live in an apartment. It is a bit of setting up, so I didn't bother with that. Share houses, they're often really easy, so I would totally recommend that. But it's nice to actually just have that little lifestyle, that cozy lifestyle, because along with that comes the transport. And in some ways, it can be kind of tedious, you know, taking hour-long trains to places. Like, most of my train rides were like 3/4 of an hour, considerably long compared to, you know, my 15-minute drive to work in my city, Christchurch, here in New Zealand. But in saying that, if I took an hour train somewhere and then took an hour train back, I could do so much on the train most of the time, like when it's not packed, you know. So I would read books. I read, I think, almost all of the Game of Thrones books just on my Kindle, standing on packed trains. But when it wasn't packed, I'd sit there and I'd draw the other passengers. There's a lot you can do. You know, you can waste time on your phone if you want. You can watch TV series, whatever you like. But it was cool. It didn't really feel like such a waste of time because I got a lot done in that commuting time. And then now that I'm back in New Zealand, it's like, oh, I'm driving, oh, wasting all this time I could be spending drawing random people on a train. And so from there, of course, I think it's worth talking about work. And I think this is a big thing about working holidays. For a lot of us, our options are like teach English or work at a tourism kind of place, like a resort or something. If you've got some mastery of Japanese, you could work in a convenience store or in some kind of service. And I actually experienced, of course, the English teaching, but also customer service, as someone who can speak a bit of Japanese. And I have to say, if you want to get good at Japanese, I think there's no better way than just throwing yourself in the deep end there. I mean, ideally don't put yourself in a really busy kind of restaurant like I did, because that was really, really tough. You had to just think on the go all the time. But I did improve my Japanese a heap. One thing to consider is that the pay rate is incredibly low. Really, 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 really low. Disappointingly low. Compared to what you would get if you taught English. And actually teaching English is my profession, like that's my trade, that's my area of expertise. I've been doing that for like 6 years, so suffice to say, I enjoyed teaching English more and I got more out of that. And I taught kids at a kindergarten, I taught elementary school kids, that's primary school age kids, and I think, you know, that's different to what I usually teach, and I think that was a really good experience, you know. I'm going to say this as someone who, you know, I thought I hated kids. I really thought I hated kids before I came to Japan. And then, you know what? I learned that I actually don't hate kids. They're actually pretty fun sometimes. And I think that's one of the main things you can get out of taking like a working holiday in a country. You can learn so much more about yourself because you don't have the conveniences of your old life. You aren't in your comfort zone. You know, the money's different. You have to think a bit more. Transport, well, at least for me, it was really different. The work's different. The people are different. And the fun is different as well. I think you learn about who you are, I think, when you spend that length of time away from, you know, your family and friends in your country. You learn about what you actually enjoy. And I found this with a lot of people who were also on working holidays in Japan. You know, they kind of experimented a bit, figured out what they like, but they tried a lot of new things, not great things some of the time, but you definitely get a feeling for who you are. And I think that's a kind of journey we're all on, right? Like, who are we? Like, who am I? And at least in my case, that started to become really clear for me, and I really like that. That's a huge thing that I got out of Japan that I could not have gotten just living in my country that year, you know? None of these things would open up for me. And a large part of that comes from the fact that Japan, at least I was in Tokyo, Tokyo itself is a world of opportunity. There are so many things going on, huge events, just things to do, people to meet. I met some incredible people, artists, because, you know, for me, I like art and drawing and I want to pursue that, but I met people who just inspired me so much. I saw these amazing galleries and it was perfect for me, you know. I think we get a little bit stagnant in our daily life in our own country sometimes, and we lose our inspiration a little bit. And I think something like a working holiday can really give you the boost you need. It makes you realize, you know, how little time you have, and it makes you realize that, I don't even know how to put it, but it makes you realize that now is the time to do the things you want to do. Yeah. But of course, in terms of fun things in Tokyo itself, I mean, this is true for a lot of big cities in Japan, but personally, I really like the game arcades. I love the karaoke. There are some really cute bars and things. Even the clubs are fun. But I think one of the highlights is definitely the festivals. They can get packed, but it's so exciting. It's so interesting. There's just stuff happening all the time. And that was a real change from what I'm used to. Yeah. So yeah, I think just to sum up, should you go on a working holiday to Japan? I think I'm just going to say big, fat yes. You should do it. You should take yourself out of your comfort zone, you know, grow and challenge yourself. It's not going to be fun the whole time. I mean, I'm going to say probably 60% of my trip, my working holiday in Japan was really, really, really hard and aggravating. I mean, that's largely due to the nature of the work I chose to do, and also some external things happening in my life, like with my family and loved ones. But I think Japan's great because it is quite safe, but it is exciting and it is challenging. I think it's just making your own way. You know, experiment. Don't go crazy, but experiment. And you don't even have to just go to Japan, but if you can find a place that has opportunities, a place that is strikingly different from where you're from, I think you can get a huge amount out of it. Not just as a holiday, because holidays are great, but I think what people really should do is really uproot their lives and just live a different life for a year. I think you can get so much out of it. Well, yeah, I got really inspired talking about all that. Anyway, if you do have any questions about doing a working holiday in Japan, like specific things, I'm happy to talk about that. Feel free to ask. Otherwise, you know, take that step you've been thinking about taking, you know. Don't be afraid. I don't think you'll regret it. I think even if there are really tough things that happen on that journey, like, the outcome is worth it. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's Chanel. Over and out.